Guys, are people balding younger and younger than ever before? Well, I don't know the answer to that, but I do have an article here that I pulled up titled Why Millennials Are Losing Their Hair Earlier. And it says stress diet and even hair treatments are among the possible reasons younger generations are noticing hair loss at an earlier age. So we'll go through this article together. I'm sure I'll have some things I agree with, some things that I don't agree with, and we'll try to get to the bottom of this question here. As usual, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment box below, and let me know what your thoughts are on this. All right, so let's start here. Have you noticed that younger people seem to be losing their hair a lot sooner? It may not be your imagination. Okay. New research found that people in China in their 20s are going bald sooner than any generation before them. Well, I mean, I haven't heard about that research, but I don't doubt that it exists. The data was anecdotal from a self reported study of 4,000 students at Tsinghua University in Beijing, but researchers said 60% of the young study participants reported that they were losing significant amounts of hair. Well, right away, the first thing that pops out to me is that this is a self reported survey. And as usual with these self reported surveys, there's no real way of vetting the accuracy of any of these statements. And also, when people are saying they're losing significant amounts of hair, that really means, two different things to two different people. So I've seen people freak out over literally no hair loss whatsoever. And then I've seen people who have had, Norwood 6 balding and then think that they're completely fine. So I don't know what significant amounts of hair means, but yeah, I mean, I would take that with a grain of salt. So let's continue here. It says, while 25% of respondents said they didn't notice the hair loss until they were told by friends or family, 40% responded that they were quite aware of their receding hairlines. Okay, so I would say that if your hairline is receding, you're probably going to know that it's receding. I mean, it's pretty obvious. Your forehead gets bigger, your hairs get thin. You probably are receding in an M pattern, so you can see your temples visibly getting thinner and less dense over time. So if 40% are responding that they're quite aware of their receding hairlines, I probably tend to believe that. Researchers also reported that students least likely to report hair loss were studying science, math, and automotive engineering. Well, that's kind of interesting. I mean, I don't see why major would make a difference in terms of hair loss. I mean, if anything, you'd think that STEM majors would tend to be more men. So, I mean, you'd think that those people would experience more hair loss than like liberal arts majors, where you have a mix of men and women, and so the overall average rate of hair loss probably will be less. So I don't know about that. Maybe it has something to do with stress levels. I don't know. Okay, so millennials and hair loss. Although balding is typically associated with advancing age, an increasing number of millennials in the United States say they're experiencing hair loss. Yeah, that's true. Dr. Andrea Hui, a San Francisco dermatologist, said that both men and women as young as 18 years old are asking for help in combating hair loss. Okay, but I don't see how that's any different from ever before. New York hairstylist Angelo David told the New York Post that an increasing number of his younger clients are expressing concerns with thinning hair and receding hairlines. Okay. I mean, while that may be true, just because you have an increasing number of people expressing their concerns doesn't mean that there are more people having those issues, right? It could be a whole number of things. So, I mean, I think one of the major factors that is not being accounted for here is that there's been an advent of these online prescription services, right, that deliver you finasteride and maybe even dutasteride and other types of medication without ever even seeing a dermatologist or a doctor face to face. Now that didn't exist even 2 decades ago, so I mean that there's no way something like that won't have an impact on the number of people who are requesting consultations or asking about hair loss, ordering hair loss medications, and things like that. So I think that has to be taken into account. But let's continue here. Hormonal changes, autoimmune diseases, thyroid disorders, and stress are among the known causes of hair loss in young men and women. Yeah, that's true. However, diet can also strongly influence hair health. That's true. The growing popularity of vegetarian and vegan diets could be contributing to millennial hair loss. Um, yeah, I mean, vegetarian and vegan people, they're like as far as I know, it's a very small minority of this country. Um, and yeah, I mean, it is true that it can contribute to hair loss because typically with vegetarian and vegan diets, you're not getting enough protein sometimes. You probably aren't getting enough iron because animal protein sources also come oftentimes with iron. So you're getting both of those bases covered. I mean, it's possible, right, with vegetarian vegan diets that you are thinning a little bit because of that lack of protein and some other micronutrients. But that's not happening to the most people or the majority of the people in this country. I mean, it's a very small subsegment. Um, and even so, right, that hair loss is probably going to be temporary as long as they fix those micronutrient deficiencies at a certain point. Typically, those types of hair losses are not permanent. Okay, let's move on here. Research conducted last year by Dr. Emily L. Guo, a resident physician at the Baylor College of Medicine in Texas, indicated that severely reduced protein consumption as well as deficiencies in zinc, vitamin D, and other nutrients can negatively affect hair growth. Yeah, that's what I just said. All right. How big of a factor is stress? And it says stress can affect the growth life cycle of your hair. Usually your hair grows, then stops growing, and then finally falls out. Okay? These steps are called anagen, catagen, telogen, and exogen phases. The anagen growth phase of a human scalp, blah, 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 blah. That's followed by telogen. Okay. This is a continuous process between 50 and 100 hairs every day. So this number it's just something that I don't agree with. Everybody will shed a different number of hairs every day. Some people will shed between 2 to 5 hairs every day, and others will shed 50 and 100, right? And so this isn't something where everybody should be shedding 50 and 100. For some people, that equates to hair loss essentially because that's not part of their normal hair shedding frequency. And for other people, this is perfectly normal. So again, with these hair shed numbers, I really don't think it's accurate to put a hard number on it because everyone's different. All right, so let's move on here. Doris Day, MD, of day dermatologist, blah, blah, believes that stress is a significant factor causing millennial hair loss. Stress can interrupt the hair growth process by moving hairs out of the growth phase prematurely. This can cause higher amounts of hair to fall out, Day told Healthline. Yeah, sure, but typically stress-related hair loss isn't going to be permanent. Stress-induced hair loss has been demonstrated in mice exposed to loud noises. In this study, stress led the rodent's hair to enter catagen prematurely. Yeah, sure. But then it's going to restart an anagen. So that's not permanent hair loss. It's not male pattern baldness. Another study involved monkeys, found a greater likelihood of hair loss in test animals with higher cortisol. Yeah, I mean, we just established that. So that's not anything new. According to a report from the American Psychological Association, APA, research indicates a connection between age and stress. Millennials say they feel isolated or lonely due to stress while maintaining an average of 5 close friends with whom they can relax, discuss personal matters, or call on for help. I mean, 5 close friends is actually quite a lot. I mean, most people that I know of don't have 5 close friends, so I don't know where they're getting this source. But that's plenty, right? If you have 5 close friends that you can discuss personal issues with, like hair loss or call on for help, I think that's plenty, right? I don't think you're going to be stressed out if you have 5 close friends, especially not because of something like that. I mean, overall, I don't agree entirely with this premise that younger people today are more stressed out than several decades ago, because I mean, if you think about it, we have a lot more technology today that makes our lives a lot easier, right? I mean, a couple of decades ago, nobody had cell phones. And you can argue that cell phones create more stress than not, but with that, you have a lot of different conveniences, right? You can call people. You don't have to, go in person and knock on someone's door. You can order things online. Like I just ordered lunch through Uber Eats, and before I would have to call the restaurant and make sure that they, had delivery services, and if they didn't, then I'd have to find out who did or open a yellow page or whatever, right? Yeah, I'm kind of revealing my age here, but that's I feel like it kind of balances itself out, right? There are things that are more stressful than before, and I think some of those could be related to loneliness and isolation, but also there's things that are a lot easier because of technology. So I don't think you can entirely make that claim. APA researchers discovered that members of Generation X and millennials reported higher levels of stress than older generations. They also seem to have more difficulty successfully coping. Okay, I mean, I can buy that. They said that millennials' hair maintenance may also be contributing to hair loss. Excessive bleaching and dyeing can seriously damage hair, she said. The weight and tension of hair extensions can also weaken hair follicles, causing more hair to fall out. Yeah, but I mean, typically this type of hair loss from product use or bleaching or whatever is not going to be permanent. Again, this is temporary hair loss that comes back most of the time, that is. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't know a whole ton of people who are bleaching their hair constantly or, dyeing their hair constantly. Maybe because I live in the South, maybe more liberal states and cities have more people dyeing their hair and bleaching their hair constantly. But I don't know. I mean, I don't see those types of people very often. And then finally here it says millennials are more hair aware. It says Day considers the increasing focus placed on appearance through the media as another factor that makes millennials more sensitive to hair changes. Exactly. I mean, that's essentially my theory, right? I don't think people are experiencing more hair loss than ever before or at a younger age. I just think that people are more aware of it. With the internet, you have so much exposure to knowledge about hair loss and hair loss solutions and treatments, and you have ads popping up in your screen every 2 seconds telling you to take X medication or Y medication for hair loss. So people understand what hair loss is now. I mean, I think decades ago you could have lost hair and just thought, hey, maybe my hairline's maturing, or maybe everyone loses hair. Who cares? But I feel like beauty is much more important today than it was before, and so people are much more sensitive to even just losing just a little bit of hair, and they freak out and then they immediately look for solutions. So I think that definitely has some of it to do with it. It's normal for people to experience some hair loss in their 20s and 30s, she said, but greater exposure to celebrities and the media created greater desire for thicker, more attractive hair than earlier generations experienced. Exactly. Anyone concerned about thinning hair or balding should see a dermatologist. Blah blah blah. Yeah. So, guys, in conclusion, I personally don't think that people are balding earlier or younger than they have before. I think there's just more awareness around what hair loss is and what are some of the solutions around it. I think that hair has become a lot more important to younger people than it used to be. So if you think about some of the recent trends like e-boys, right? A lot of their visual appeal comes from their hair, right? The way they style it, how much volume it has, things like that. So that used to, not be a thing. I'm sure hair was still important back then as well, but I also feel like people didn't care that much if they were balding a couple of decades ago. I mean, they just say, hey, you have this hair, I have this hair, so what? But now if you're balding, it's like, oh my God, your life's gonna end, and it's not like that. So that's one thing. And then, as I mentioned before as well, I think the advent of these sort of prescription delivery services like Keeps and Hims and other companies are really increasing the awareness around hair loss, but also making it much more convenient to access hair loss treatments and solutions. Whereas before, you have to go through a dermatologist, and fair enough, you do still have to go through a dermatologist, quote unquote, online by sending a derm 2 pictures or something like that. But it's a lot easier than making an appointment with your primary care physician and maybe having him or her refer you to a dermatologist and going through the entire process and finding this out. You can just type in Hims or Keeps or whatever online and get that done in minutes. So I think that has a lot to do with it. But guys, let me know your thoughts below in the comments section. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on if this is a real phenomenon or is it just people's imagination. All right, that's all I have for you guys today. Cheers and see you guys next time.